Kyle Butler, Dave Cutler, Sean Ellis, Daryl Tucker, Arthur Curry, Steve Gaskill, Jim Lindsay, Red Schmidt, but you may know him more prominently as Dexter Morgan. Yes, that's right, the Dark Defender, the Dark Passenger, the Bay Harbor Butcher. All of these are names Dexter's used or been called, and today we will be going through the backstory of all of these names and when and why he used them. First, the no-brainer, Dexter Moser. We're starting with the true blood-given name, given to him by his mother, Dexter Moser. I purposely didn't put this one on the list because it's the name he is least prominently known as besides other one-offs. The story of Dexter Morgan must first start with Dexter Moser's backstory, which leads to his given name from his foster father, Harrison Morgan, or Harry in the show. The tragic yet very life-changing backstory of Dexter Morgan starts with Dexter Moser, who Dexter was before Harry. It was Dexter, Laura, Brian, and Dexter's not-so-included-in-the show dad, Joe Driscoll, who later is no longer in their life. Driscoll later reappears in Season 1. Not that we see him, but we hear of his death. This leaves us with Dexter, Brian, and Laura, who, when with Joe, used to smuggle drugs, and when she was caught, Harry Morgan, a renowned cop in Miami Metro, made her his CI, or criminal informant, who is someone who is on the inside of an organization that involves illegal activities, and gets paid for the information they relay back to Miami Metro. Seeing as this was the only way to protect and provide for her two boys, Laura had to accept Harry's offer. Laura ran with Hector Estrada and his gang of drug dealers and smugglers, who later lured Laura with her children to a shipping container when Miami Metro planned to bust Hector. Except when they got there, Laura found out. Hector knew she was relaying information about the group, which later led to him take a chainsaw and chop her up in front of Brian and Dexter. Dexter was around 3, and Brian around 6 when this happened. Brian and Dexter sat in the bloody shipping container for 2 whole days, until being found by Miami Metro and Harry Morgan. Harry originally fostered or took care of both Brian and Dexter. After many mishaps, Brian was eventually removed and at some point placed in a mental institution after bouncing from foster home to foster home. Harry ends up adopting Dexter, and Dexter's last name changes from Moser to Morgan to help bury Dexter's past and keep him as normal as a kid can be when he watches his mother get murdered in front of him. Which concludes the story of Dexter Moser for now, and opens the chapter of Dexter Morgan. 20 to 30 years later, we meet Dexter Morgan, a regular middle-aged man with a stable career in Miami Metro homicide. Everything seems to have turned out alright for Dexter, right? Not so much. Ever since that fateful night that Dexter lost his mother, he's had this urge, is what he calls it, to kill. Harry knows this, so Harry, being the good cop that he is, tries to get Dexter to channel it and use it on people who deserve it more than just innocents. Dexter only kills people who've evaded the justice system and or gotten away with their killings and gone under the radar. A vigilante takes out only people who deserve it. Number 1 rule in Harry's code: never get caught. So, that's the rule Dexter abides the most by. But he makes sure to always vet before he kills, or plans to kill. Another one I left off the list was Patrick Bateman. Yes, that's right. American Psycho. Christian Bale. Dexter uses this name to get his M99, the drug he uses to knock out the deserving victims. We find out in Original Sin that he gets this fake personality / name from Masuka, or someone Masuka knows, because he has a fake ID created that he uses as Dr. Patrick Bateman, the doctor of horses, which is the drug he uses, M99, horse tranquilizer. There's not much else Dexter uses Patrick Bateman's fake identity for, other than to get the M99. Next up on the list is Kyle Butler. Very major name in Season 4. Dexter uses the alias Kyle Butler to infiltrate the Mitchell family, aka the Trinity Killer's family, in hopes of learning, vetting, and possibly taking notes on how to be a balanced family man like Trinity. Dexter finds Trinity and strikes up a conversation with him under the name Kyle Butler, and he later goes on trips or errands with Trinity to learn more from him, but Trinity just takes it as Dexter being a friend to him. Dexter later meets the rest of the family and sees how messed up it really is. Trinity isn't balancing being a family man and a notorious serial killer. Cracks have been starting to seep through his cleverly crafted facade. As tensions rise between Jonah and Trinity, Jonah being Trinity's son, other problems also arise after an argument when, as Dexter is leaving their house, Trinity's daughter, who is either 15 or 16 at the time, begs Dexter to take her away from this, implying that she will exchange sexual behaviors as a means of payment for taking her away. Dexter, being a decent human being, he flatly refuses these advances, and as he does, Sally, Trinity's wife, catches Rebecca and is terrified not so much as Dexter might be having sexual relationships with her, but more so that Arthur might find out about this and worries about what he might do to her, Trinity's wife. Dexter and Trinity, slowly by slowly, chip away at each other's facades they hold up, and end up clashing towards the last couple episodes of the 4th season, which as Dexter sends Rita and Harrison, Dexter's son, away as a means of keeping them safe under the guise of their honeymoon. Dexter pursues Trinity in full force, uncovering more and more truths about him, and as he has him on his kill table, he feels great relief that this is all over, just for Dexter to return home to find his wife, Rita, dead in a bathtub full of her own blood. Harrison, sitting on the floor, is both Harrison and the floor being covered in Rita's blood. This gruesome scene resembles Dexter in a way that both Dexter and Harrison were both born in blood. Daryl Tucker is the next name on the list. Dexter uses this name while vetting Boyd Fowler, potential suspect in the Barrel Grove killings. Fowler was a part of the Miami Roadkill pickup crew. Dexter, in a means of learning more about Boyd, searches for some roadkill to call in. When he does, lo and behold, Boyd Fowler is the one to show up. First thing Dexter notices about Boyd is that he's very interested and unusually observant about dead bodies, pointing out multiple characteristics to suggest that the raccoon was killed in a defensive struggle, then moved to the road post-mortem. Boyd is unusually fascinated in deceased animals, and very observant, even to the point where it's off-putting for Dexter. When Boyd notices the ring mark on Dexter's finger, and assumes that Dexter is divorced, Dexter, being the man he is, doesn't want Boyd to know much about his wife. Attempt to sedate Boyd when they get out of the truck to clean up roadkill, Dexter sticks Boyd with his needle full of M99, and Boyd quickly shoots Dexter with a trank gun he had for the circumstances at the time, which was an alligator that might not be dead. While in the hospital, after a motorist spots them and reports it to 911, Dexter and Boyd exchange glaring stares. Boyd later rips off all of his monitors and tubing, looking for something sharp to kill Dexter with. Approaching his bed, just to realize Dexter had already fled, which causes Boyd to return home. When he arrives home, Boyd hears a noise and retrieves a handgun from his drawer. He then hears the inspirational tape by Jordan Chase he plays when home. Randomly starts playing. Dexter then sedates Fowler and kills him. Dave Cutler is one of the least known aliases Dexter goes by. Dexter uses this name when searching through an auto salvage yard owned by Jorge Castillo, under the main objective of looking for Yelena, someone who works with Rita at the hotel's husband, who paid to be illegally smuggled into the U.S. Castillo approaches Dexter and politely asks Dexter to leave the salvage yard, stating that it's a private salvage yard. Dexter introduces himself as Dave Cutler, under the guise of looking for a '69 Stingray headlight. Jorge doesn't allow Dexter to look around, instead giving him the address of a Corvette shop. Jorge then lets it slip that he runs the salvage yard alone. Dexter then leaves to return at night to continue the search of Yelena's husband, and vetting Jorge. Dexter breaks into the main garage just to find old, dirty mattresses and other signs that people have been held in it. Dexter does some more vetting of Jorge's personal life, learning he has a wife, and assumes she is unaware of the smuggler. Later that same night, Dexter sneaks onto Jorge's boat, finding and taking pictures of proof that Jorge had been smuggling the immigrants. Dexter just barely escapes unseen by Jorge, who had shown back up into the salvage yard that night. Jorge returns once again that night holding immigrants at gunpoint, locking them in the garage. Jorge finds a trail of lit candles leading to a trailer in which he steps into, just to find pictures of his dead victims on the walls. Dexter sedates Jorge, when suddenly he hears a car outside. While hiding, Dexter spots that it's Jorge's wife, who opens the garage, and as a woman tries to escape, pushes her back in and calls her a quote-unquote Cuban piece of shit, and decides to kill both of them, sedating Valerie. Later, Dexter kills the couple both at the same time, but only chopping up Jorge. Sean Ellis is used in Season 1 after Dexter visits 3 similar crime scenes, all involving a suicide of a young woman in her late 20s, early 30s, often being high-power authority women. Dexter finds out later that all of these women went to a therapist, Dr. Emmett Meridian. Dexter goes to Meridian to vet and uncover secrets he may be hiding, and if he's involved in these suicides. Dexter goes under the guise of Sean Ellis for a therapy session. Dexter quickly finds out how manipulative Meridian is, later uncovering that Meridian had been supplying these women meds to deal with their depression or anxiety. Meridian then suddenly cuts them off and manipulates them into thinking suicide is a good way to deal with their pain. When Meridian makes them think that they were the ones to think of it, never directly telling them to do it, but suggesting or putting the idea into their heads. Once Dexter realizes this, he quickly puts an end to his heinous crimes. Though he didn't directly kill the woman, Dexter finds him code-worthy anyway, to prevent any more deaths. Arthur Curry and Steve Gaskill kind of go hand in hand, Arthur being the less complicated of the two. Dexter uses these names when trying to locate Hector Estrada, the man who killed his mother. Using Arthur when he locates Florencia Estrada, Hector's wife. Using Arthur when he locates Florencia Estrada, Hector's wife. Dexter poses as Arthur Curry, Hector's parole officer. When Florencia says she hasn't seen Hector in a while, he later follows her to her car and sees her meet up with Hector in a park, giving him food and other items. Dexter introduces himself to Estrada under the alias Steve Gaskill. He pretends to want Estrada's help in selling a large amount of sativa in order to gain Estrada's trust He mentions some of Estrada's old partners. After initially blowing him off, Estrada is convinced by Dexter to meet up with him later that night, Christmas Eve. As scheduled, both men arrive at the meeting spot and Dexter walks with Estrada to a shipping container. As they enter, Estrada notices the plastic-covered interior and the chainsaw on the table. Estrada pulls a gun on Dexter, and Dexter quickly disarms him, although a shot is fired. Estrada is choked by Dexter until he passes out. Upon awakening, Estrada is confronted about the shipping yard massacre, the death of his mother Laura. Dexter informs Estrada that he cut up Santos Jimenez into 6 pieces and is going to do the exact same with him. Estrada suddenly realizes just who Dexter is, but calls him Dickie Moser. Dexter corrects his name and continues with his ritual, making Estrada look at the photo of Dexter as a 3-year-old child. Ready to kill him, Dexter picks up the chainsaw, but Estrada stops him with some compelling information. He mentions that a cop had arranged for his release, a captain. He accuses Dexter of working with her in a setup. Dexter realizes that it was Maria LaGuerta, and she is setting up a trap for Dexter himself. He cuts Estrada loose, and they walk him out onto the dock. With Dexter trying to help keep him quiet, LaGuerta, with 2 armed detectives, arrive on scene. And Estrada takes the opportunity to thump Dexter and escape into the waters below. Dexter is left without knowledge of his serious whereabouts. After the failed attempt to kill Estrada, Dexter visits his wife, Florencia, which we already covered. After the events of meeting with Florencia takes place, Dexter pays 2 young boys playing nearby to throw a ball at Estrada, who then chases them into the parking lot where Dexter's vehicle awaits. Dexter injects Estrada with M99, throws him into the cargo space, takes him back to the shipping container, and secures him to the kill table. Dexter lies to Estrada, saying that he'll set him free if he calls LaGuerta and lures her to the container. This is a ruse so that Dexter can kill both Estrada and LaGuerta. While they wait, Estrada tells Dexter that his mother was a snitch, and it was her or me. Dexter stabs Estrada in the chest, killing the last of his mother's murderers. He plans on shooting LaGuerta when she arrives, and Estrada post-mortem, to make it look like they killed each other. Unexpectedly, Dexter Morgan appears on scene and tries to stop Dexter from killing LaGuerta. However, Deborah herself ends up killing LaGuerta, which leaves her dealing with emotional trauma. After faking his death in Hurricane Laura, Dexter is living in Oregon under the alias Jim Lindsay. 10 years after Season 8, Dexter is living a whole new life under a false name, Jim Lindsay, in the small town of Iron Lake, New York. He has a normal job at a local game shop and a chief of police girlfriend. After reuniting with his father, Harrison explains that he tracked down Dexter to the town, Oregon, using the return address on Dexter's letter to Hannah McKay. However, by then, Jim Lindsay had already left, and it got a little harder to track him down as there are a lot of people named Jim Lindsay, which Dexter thinks to himself is kind of the point. Harrison eventually found the right Jim Lindsay in the picture, posted on Instagram by Fred Jr., bragging about him bowling a 300. When asked why he's Jim now, Dexter tells his son that Dexter Morgan isn't who he is anymore. Dexter had to die. In the episode titled Runaway, while on drugs and drunk, Harrison tells Audrey Bishop, Angela Bishop's son, the chief of police girlfriend we talked about, that Jim Lindsay isn't even his father's real name. Audrey later tells her mother Angela about what Harrison had told her, having met Angel Batista at a missing persons conference and learning about Dexter and his son Harrison from him. Angela looks up Dexter Morgan's obituary online and discovers Jim's real identity. In the episode Too Many Tuna Sandwiches, after discovering Dexter's real identity, Angela pulls him over and tells him to give her his ID as Dexter Morgan, not Jim Lindsay. Dexter defends himself by telling Angela that after Rita and Deborah were killed, it was all too much for him, and he drove into Hurricane Laura to commit suicide, only to survive, which he took as a sign that he could start over. Dexter points out that technically faking your death isn't a crime, to the furious Angela. After finding the body of Iris Broussard, Angela calls Dexter for help in solving her murder, telling him that she needs Dexter Morgan, not Jim Lindsay. In the episode Sins of the Father, after arresting Dexter for the murder of Matt Caldwell, Angela makes him identify himself on camera as Dexter Morgan rather than Jim Lindsay. Red Schmidt is the last name Dexter uses as a false identity. Dexter, now in New York, following the events of being shot by his son Harrison in Iron Lake, Dexter finds out that there's been a killer. There's been rideshare drivers getting their heads sawn off by the Dark Passenger. Yes, the name Dexter uses for his dark side. But this isn't Dexter we're talking about. This is a man with no code. A man who kills relentlessly for assumed to be no reason other than just to kill. Dexter being upset that someone took his name, the Dark Passenger, seeks to find who the Dark Passenger is, later finding him and killing him. Posing as a rideshare driver, Dexter lures the Dark Passenger to his car, waiting with M99. When the Dark Passenger, Red Schmidt, finally does his ritual on Dexter, Dexter is prepared. Dexter has worn a steel plate around his neck and a turtleneck to keep him from sawing off his head. Dexter slams on the brakes, grabs the M99 after it had fallen, and sticks Red Schmidt with it. Dexter then puts Red Schmidt on his table and kills him. Then, after something Red had said about giving back the money, pleading for his life, Dexter starts to wonder. Dexter eventually then looks in his book bag to find that there's an invitation for like-minded individuals for a serial killer club. That is when Dexter poses as Red Schmidt. I don't want to spoil the rest of Dexter Resurrection, so I will leave the rest of this section empty. I just want to thank anyone who ends up watching this video. This is my first video, and hopefully many more to come. Thank you. Goodbye.